Alright, well we're going to look at end of course assessment. And since we don't have much class time, we're going to do this through videos. We're going to give it a try anyways. So end of course assessment for Algebra 2. So first of all, we want to know the test. So this video is just a few minutes long, and it's just to talk about what's going to be on the test. Algebra to EOC is divided up into 7 categories that you can see here. And each category is then broken down into the standards. So I'm attaching in Edmodo a document that gives the standards with their categories. What I want you to notice here is the readiness standards, which are in green. Those readiness standards, there's not as many of them as there are supporting standards, but the readiness standards make up 60 to 65% of your test, which doesn't mean the supporting standards aren't important, because if you don't know the supporting standards, then you won't be able to do the readiness standards. But most of your questions are going to come from those things. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We've got a total of 50 questions on the test. 45 are multiple choice, 5 are griddable. And then remember, there's also field test questions, so you should come up with a total of 60 questions on the test. Broken down into categories, this is how many there are from each category. Properties and functions, there's 8. Representational tools, there's 8. Quadratic functions, there's 12. That's going to be the most heavily tested. Representations of quadratic functions, this is where you're going to see your conics that we're talking about right now. Square root functions, there's 5. Rational functions, 5. And exponential and logarithmic, 6. So it's going to be mostly up in here in your properties, representations, and quadratics. And that's going to be heavy in transformations, domain and range, things like that. This is just an example of the document that I'm attaching. This is a breakdown of just category 1. And so this is the content objectives that I put on the board every day. This is where they come from. And so the readiness standards here nice, are kind of in pink. And so those are the ones that most of your questions are coming from. So domain and range, being able to tell whether it's continuous or discrete. Being able to decide what kind of function it is. So remembering that we have 7 different ones to choose from in Algebra 2. And then to take that, make it into a table, make it into a graph, and use it to make predictions. That's a big thing. And then down here, your transformations, your AHK. Those are your readiness. And in order to do the readiness, we have to be able to sketch graphs of parent functions and know our parent functions, and tell about a function and its inverse. Other important things to know. Remember, you have 4 hours to complete this test. And since we have, including field test questions, 60 questions, that gives you 4 minutes to complete each question. So, good strategy on this test is not work through each question and then move on to the next one. So we're going to talk as we go along about ways to use our calculators, ways to speed up the process so that we have the extra time on the lengthy problems that we need. So here's our review plan. We're going to create a video. Hopefully it will be just 1 video long for important vocabulary, specific examples, and each student expectation. So we're just going to go back through each category. Okay, here's what you needed to know. I'll give practice problems that you can do if you want to. They're not a requirement in any way. I'm not taking them up. I'm not taking a grade on them. They're just to help you. There are lots of resources out there online. You're welcome to use them. You're welcome to come ask me questions. You're welcome to go talk with another teacher, whatever you need to do. I think that you're going to be well prepared, but we want to make sure that we're above and beyond so that when you get to the test, it seems easy. So things I'm going to attach in Edmodo with this is the document with the categories, all of your student expectations on it for you to look through, and the released questions from last year's EOC. There are not very many of them, but what I have, I'm going to put up there for you to look at just to kind of see what to expect. I think you're going to see on there it's a lot more of the function notation we've been talking about, and not so much of the y equals, much more correct notation. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there, and the next video we'll put up will be Category 1 and review of that.